The Metal Gear series has kind of been through the ringer the last couple of years. Starting with Kojima resigning in 2015 and Konami muscling him with a non-compete clause that silenced him for a year following his departure from the company. Meanwhile, former and current Konami employees were coming out of hiding and began speaking of the horrors of working for the company. Konami, on the other hand, revealed a launch trailer for a Metal Gear game with no Snake, but full of multiplayer action and microtransactions.
What's going on? Snake! Snake!
The whole thing sounds like an absolute recipe for disaster. And days before the release, an open beta was unceremoniously dropped without much in the way of press. So will the Metal Gear franchise and Konami the company survive this controversy and manage to turn a profit? Let's find out.
Forgive me for what I'm about to do.
Nope, no one bought the game, and Konami just filed for the Japanese version of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Hey, I'm back from the dimension where justice exists and terrible companies go bankrupt when they treat people like shit. But since this is the dimension where huge mega corporations can treat people like shit and get away with it and turn a profit, why don't we look at the latest Metal Gear game, the first one since Kojima left? Which is a multiplayer based building game with microtransactions set in the Metal Gear universe, and by all accounts it's a soulless cash grab, and the original creator of the series, Kojima himself, has pretty much disowned it. But that's the thing, isn't it? Can you even call him the father of the Metal Gear franchise? Kojima didn't become involved with the series until the first game had already been outlined and gone into production. He was asked to take over the project after a senior staff member failed to making the combat properly work due to hardware limitations. And that is where Kojima came in and took over and came up with the stealth angle. After the game launched, Kojima then began work on Snatcher, and another team took over work porting Metal Gear to other systems, including coding an entirely new version for the NES from scratch. A version that would become so popular that it has its own sequel, and it wasn't until after hearing about that sequel that Kojima regained interest in the Metal Gear series and made his own sequel. With the launch of the PlayStation came new 3D graphics, and Kojima and his team quickly got working on a new Metal Gear game. While it would be the first to get a wide release in the West, it would also be designed as a final entry. And this is pretty much the last Metal Gear game that Kojima designed as a proper, true labor of love, and it shows in pretty much every other game following it. Fans have known since 2008 that Kojima wanted to pursue other projects, and Metal Gear Solid 4 was supposed to be the definitive end for the series. And Metal Gear Survive isn't the first Metal Gear without Kojima, and it isn't the first Metal Gear to put players in the shoes of a random goon in combat armor. And despite Kojima laughing off the game as a stupid thing that has nothing to do with Metal Gear Solid, the game is based on an idea that he had for a Metal Gear Rising sequel back in 2013. So how bad can Metal Gear Survive really be? Sometime after Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, an event happens and multiple wormholes open up in the sky. Big Boss and Cass, along with the rest of the recognizable MGS5 cast, is evacuated from Mother Base. As a random soldier in the Big Boss army, you and other random online players that you decide to bring with you are stranded, and you must rebuild Mother Base, and you utilize the interdimensional alien technology to do so. None of this was really present in the beta. There was just a handful of lobby missions available. From what I can understand, these take place in the zombie dimension. That is where those crystal things come from. And the missions available in the beta are a select handful of the available missions in the full game. Your objective in the missions are to beam to the zombie dimension with 3 other players or solo, set up a mining device that mines the zombie crystal energy, and defend the mining device while doing so. I mostly played the easy missions that were available. I don't have a ton of experience with the MGS5 vanilla game, and there wasn't a lot in the ways of tutorials in the beta. So I had to acquaint myself with both the MGS5 controls and all the new gimmicks that MG Survive throws at you. I did, near the end, get to play a few normal missions, and together with some sweets I managed to S-rank one map. The game isn't just a Metal Gear tower defense game with 4 players. It's a genuine co-op game. A normal map can easily be lost if you don't work together, and in order to get an S rank, you really need to distribute the defense load evenly between players. There are a lot of mechanics at work here, and you can't as a single player use them all in a fight. The regular zombies need dealing with in one way. They're not strong, but they are numerous, and they can gang up on you. But since ammo is very limited, someone needs to set up traps and fences and handle them in melee combat, and their loadout needs to reflect that. A player equipped with the chain link fence and a spear can stab the zombies through that chain link fence before they can take it down. And he's a lot more valuable in this situation than the guy with a machine gun and 2 extra pouches of ammo. But the ammo pouch guy is absolutely invaluable against bomber zombies. If they get to a barricade, they'll blow it up in one hit. An ammo guy can shoot the bomber from a distance before it gets close, and hopefully in the process take out any other zombies that are close to him. And so on and so on and so on. I really didn't see one foolproof way of doing things. It isn't as much about the different loadouts as it is gauging the situation and using your loadout differently than the guy who has the same loadout as you. It's not like you're light on equipment, you have 4 weapon slots, and in the betas there was everything from bows to fire axes to shotguns and assault rifles to fill them with. You also have 8 slots that you can equip items in, and these can be everything from deployable miniguns, health items, fences and Molotov cocktails. And in the beginning, when everyone started out and we were all the same level and had the same stuff, I saw that equipment loads were big enough that you can have 4 players with the exact same gear never use the same weapon and items, even though everyone is cycling through a couple. It's a stark departure from co-op modes in other games where you might work together and cooperate, defend different fronts and such, but it's really a competition, and the guy who's best at the rooty-tooty gun shooty, he's gonna be the one that walks away with the biggest reward. I didn't see a lot of that in Metal Gear Survive. The guy who snuck out behind enemy lines and picked up the supply caches or stealth killed the occasional bomber got just as many points as the guy piloting the mini Metal Gear or minigun did. Each match in the beta consisted of 3 waves, and the enemy would become more numerous each round, and in between each wave, and sometimes during a wave, there were side missions that were pretty much mandatory to survive a mission. Not only do the side missions grant you ammo and access to mission specific equipment, it was also an opportunity to pick up items for the crafting system. And everything is crafted. The guns, ammo, items, consumables and armor that you use in missions are crafted by you. Armor will gradually decay as you take hits. Thirst and hungers are also in the full game and will become factors. The barricades you place are one use, and they are crafted with resources that you scavenge on the mission field. And that's really the meat of the game, and also where the signature MGS costume bonanza comes in. Pretty much everything on the maps can be broken down with the tool and picked up, and it can all be used to craft something. And after just 3 matches in the beta, the assortment of vanilla players that I had just played with had become crazy looking color combinations of armor and sporting weird weapons like explosive bows and cattle prods. And everything can be customized with elemental effects strengthened and leveled up. And it's quite fun. And that's kind of the biggest issue with Metal Gear Survive. It's a soulless cash grab, greenlit by the corporate vampires at Konami, but the actual people working on the game. You can tell that they put their heart and soul into it, and it shows. It's an insanely tight experience. Every aspect of the game feels fleshed out and properly developed. It looks great and it plays great, and it's such a shame because you shouldn't buy it. A company like Konami doesn't deserve to have a stellar lineup of games like they do, and they don't deserve to turn a profit every year like they do. On both this and the patchy slots, which they hopefully won't do much longer, as patchy slots have come into a bit of a problem and might soon be classified as actual gambling by the Japanese gambling authority. Fingers crossed. So no, you shouldn't buy Metal Gear Survive even though it's a good game. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to matter. Hardcore Metal Gear fans who keep up with the Kojima controversy only make up a fraction of the people that bought Metal Gear Solid 5. Kojima, paradoxically, managed to work on the series for almost 30 years, and his last fuck-off title to Konami happened to be the one that broke into the mainstream and became a big seller. Don't get me wrong, Metal Gear Solid was a big name franchise in the past, but it was a big name franchise in the years when big name franchises only sold 1 million or 2 copies. MGS5 managed to sell 3 times that in a month. For some reason, Metal Gear Solid 5 was the game that ordinary people bought, and it wasn't just the hardcore gamers that came up with the franchise, or the big name franchises in general. It was also the ones that played the games on PS2 as kids or teenagers, And more importantly, it was the kids and adults who knew the game in name only, and only bought it because it looked good from the trailers. Metal Gear Survive will not be the end of a franchise. It will sell a couple million copies over a year's time, and it will make a decent chunk of cash in microtransactions, and probably also in content packs. Konami will, regardless of how bad we want them to go belly up and sell off their IPs, continue to churn a profit, and all we can do is not buy Metal Gear Survive, unfortunately.